Hello, friend, and welcome back to episode 16 of my 31-day challenge, where I am answering your questions about creating a career or a business that you love. In today's episode, I am answering a question from a very good friend of mine, one of my favourite people in the VR industry, Rachel Bracker, fellow VR creator and 360 extraordinaire. If you don't know Rachel, definitely go check her out. She's working on an incredible documentary series at the moment called With the Wind and Stars, which is about female pilots around the world. And her question that I'm going to be answering today is, where do you go for support in the VR industry? So be diving into that. If you've got a question, then please reach out to me. Ask me anything you want. Alex Makes VR is the handle across all social medias. If you've got a longer question, you can send that to alexmakesvr@gmail.com. And if you want to be reminded daily when these episodes go live, then you can sign up to the newsletter. I send it out every day with a bit of a recap about what I talk about. You can sign up at alexmakesvr.com. So, where do you go to find support in the VR industry? And the full question was where do you go for community, friendship and support in the VR industry, especially right now when everyone's so isolated. Firstly, thank you, Rachel, for asking this question. I think it's super important to talk about, and actually quite fun to talk about because it's one of the things that I love about this industry. One of the reasons why I fell in love with this industry to begin with was when I first started 360 many moons ago. I remember being so blown away by the fact that I could reach out to the very, very few people that I could find on the internet that were talking about this, which were in Facebook groups and on Reddit thread forums. And I think the only two people that were doing YouTube at the time were Kevin Coons and Alex Pierce, both of whom, well, I've not actually met Alex, but Kevin I've met several times now, every time I've been over to America and we've hung out. And what was so interesting back in those early days is that everyone was just so open and welcoming and excited to talk about this technology. I could literally reach out to Kevin, who was one of the only people that I could find online talking about how to use or doing a review of the Kodak Pix Pro, which was one of the first cameras that I bought for myself. And he would reply, and, you know, now we're friends, and it's like you could reach out and you still can. And that's the kind of the punchline of this, is that this industry is still so new that actually a lot of the discussion and a lot of the forward momentum and a lot of the support comes from being part of those conversations, being part of those groups that uplift people. So the Facebook groups in particular were huge for me when I started. Less so now, just purely because I don't tend to go on Facebook anymore because it gives me quite bad anxiety to see the amount of notifications in the corner, and I haven't quite worked out how to turn them all off. So I don't go on Facebook too often anymore, but specifically the Women in VR and AR group, which is all about, as you can imagine, kind of uplifting women in this industry. That was like an absolute game changer when I got into this industry. I'm often asked, and actually one of the questions that I've been asked is what it's like to work in technology as a woman. And I can hand on heart say that so much of my experience has been shaped by the fact that I have been able to connect with so many incredible human beings, including just such cool women that are doing amazing things all around the world. That's what's so exciting to me is you listening to this, you know, we're friends. We might not have ever met in real life, but we're having a dialogue. So many of you have been reaching out to me on Instagram and on Twitter, and we're having these back and forths. That's not something that every industry just has. That's not that's not like a culture that exists in a lot of industries. I think because this is so new and because everyone's so kind of willing to share their experience, because it's so new, and we know that in order to grow, we all need to help each other and band together to share our experience, to share our knowledge, to lift the community up. So much of that is so important to us. So I sometimes have to remind myself of that and remind myself how grateful I am. So yeah, whilst I don't kind of hang out in the Facebook groups as much anymore, they are hugely important. And you can find some like really cool people in those groups. Likewise on social media. Like if I really like what someone's doing, I'll definitely like DM them. And I know a lot of you do that to me. And I love that. I love connecting with you. I love hearing your stories. I love hearing your follow-up kind of questions to things. I've gotten to know so many of you on like quite a personal level. Like now I feel like I could probably go anywhere in the world and be able to like kind of hit one of you up and say, let's go for a beer, let's have a chat. Like it's weird. Like I remember the first time I started speaking at events and people would come up to me and be like, hey Alex, we talk online, my handle was blah blah blah. And we've been like kind of talking online for so long, and then to meet them face to face, it's just so cool. So cool. So yeah, I mean, the Facebook groups and connecting with people on social media, another big one, especially here in the UK. I don't know how big it is generally, but WhatsApp groups are massive here in the UK. So I'm part of a few different WhatsApp groups, all for kind of various different things. Some of them are just kind of like a tight-knit group of us who have just kind of like come up together in the last kind of few years, and we just use that group as a bit of like a kind of way to be like, oh, I'm feeling a bit shit about this. Can someone, someone can send me a GIF or something? And is it GIF or GIF? The eternal question. I've got other groups that are all about sharing kind of links to kind of new and interesting tech or AI related things that can help with people's projects. There's other groups that are purely just more like friendship groups, but like just with people that I'm friends with from the VR industry. You've got like one of the biggest groups is the XR Super Friends group, which is run by, or it was started by Renee, who runs Kaleidoscope VR, which if you don't know who they are, check them out. They're brilliant. That platform is phenomenal, connecting pretty much the biggest and most interesting artists working on original VR projects. They've got an amazing scheme running at the moment, actually, all about they're kind of giving monthly grants to various different people to work on projects to get them through this really difficult time with COVID kind of bringing a halt to a lot of things going on. So check them out if you don't know about them. But one of the groups that I'm involved on WhatsApp is called XR Super Friends, and it's basically literally connecting the global family of VR creators. So that's huge. Being able to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of the industry, to see what people are up to see how people are dealing with it. And then kind of outside of that, I mean, it's difficult during COVID, obviously, because I know a lot of people are kind of having VR meetups or like meeting in Altspace or, hanging out in Rec Room and playing games with each other. And that's really cool. And I'm I wish I was a bit more that way inclined, but I, funnily enough, don't tend to, even getting me on a video chat is pretty hard for a lot of my friends because I'm just way more of like an in-person kind of person. So yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, I really love the meetups and the events, which obviously at the moment can't happen, but even just maybe, and I talked about this a little bit on one of the previous episodes, talking about, how do you distribute? I think it was the episode where I was talking about distribution during COVID, that idea of like pulling everyone together and having a bit of a kind of a schedule to say, okay, well, why don't we all watch, this XR thing, and then get on a Zoom chat and like chat about it afterwards, like have a bit of a virtual cuppa, as we like to say here in England. those might be like really nice ideas. It's not something that I've necessarily done, but it could be, especially if events and meetups are off the table for a long time. That could be a really great way to get support. But I do think that community and support and friendship is really at the heart and one of the main reasons why people love this industry. It's one of the, I'm not going to lie, there has been times over the last, what has it been, 5 years since I've like been working in 360. There's been times over those years that I probably would have quit, or I probably would have been like, oh, this is too difficult. Why am I putting myself through this? It's so hard to do anything. I might have quit if I hadn't had such an incredible support system around me, a group of people that were going through the same thing. I mean, even us doing this podcast together, like even you listening to this, and with my previous series about a post-COVID world for XR, getting to connect with like-minded people, it keeps us all sane, right? It lets us know that there is a light at the end of that tunnel. So I think those are kind of like a few ways that I choose to kind of stay connected to the industry. But really, thank you again, Rachel, for this question, because I do think that finding your tribe is just a golden rule for life, really. It's taken me a long time in my personal life to figure out, what kind of people I like to have around me, and what kind of people, are actually there to kind of support and uplift and be those cheerleaders, but also be your critics when you need them to be. And that's so important, finding your people, finding people that you can have like literally over the past few weeks, the amount of times that I've had like back and forth with people over WhatsApp, where we're literally sending hours worth of voice notes back and forth just to stay connected, because often, although during COVID, it doesn't really matter whether you're down the road or on the other side of the world, but a lot of my close friends don't even necessarily live near me. So connecting in those ways is so important. But at the heart of that is finding people that you connect with, finding those people that are similar to you, challenge you in ways, but are there to ultimately kind of support and uplift you. That's so, so important. So that's enough, I reckon, on that subject. I hope this was helpful. Some of the groups that I would definitely seek out are the depending on which 360 camera you've got, the different groups for those specific cameras are usually quite active and quite good to get involved in. So for example, if you've got an Insta360 camera, you can join the official Insta360 group on Facebook. Literally thousands of people in there, all kind of posting cool photos and videos and questions about things. You can really get involved. If you are a professional, you can join the 360 VR professionals group. Little bit more hard-nosed, that group, little bit more of a tough crowd, generally way more focused on the technical side of production, and can sometimes be a bit savage on new people. So not necessarily one I would say to go to for support, but definitely one to get involved with if you are very techie and have tech questions, or again, like people post their work there. So that's also kind of a good way to stay on top of what's happening. You can join the Women in VR and AR and Allies group. It's not just for women. It's a space to uplift and support female creators and people working in the industry, but it's not just for women, because obviously men are a huge part of the puzzle piece to uplift and amplify women's voices. So get involved in that. The WhatsApp groups are a little bit more difficult because I think you have to be invited to them, but definitely go check out the Kaleidoscope VR website to kind of get connected, because that in itself has like a networking feature where you can kind of like, get to know some of the people on there. And then a big one is just reach out to your favorite creators, reach out to the people that you really like their stuff online. Like I can't over kind of emphasize how much it makes my day when someone messages me and says, I listened to episode 2 and I implemented your email formula, and I've already got 3 client calls lined up. Or, I was having no luck, and now I've managed to land 2 new clients, and now I can pay my rent. You're inspiring me. Like, it means the world to me to hear those things. So, pass that on. Like, reach out to people that you admire. Like, go and tell them like how much that their content inspires you and things like that, because that will come back to you. I'm a big believer in that. You put stuff out in the world and it will come back to you. So go be a light in someone else's life. Don't be a troll, because no one likes trolls. And also, sometimes if you've got like an opinion that is like slightly different to someone else's, maybe keep it to yourself. There's a time and a place for like kind of challenging someone. If their beliefs are, racist or sexist or homophobic or any of those like awful things, then of course air your opinion. But sometimes you can just keep your kind of your slightly different opinion on someone else's work to yourself, because there's a human on the other side of that phone. I've been on the receiving end of a couple of those comments recently, and it's not nice. And yeah, sometimes even I just think the person on the other side doesn't even necessarily think that they are being rude, or by kind of like making a subtle dig or something. But yeah, it's not nice. Anyway, be a light in someone's life, uplift the community, and it will come back to you. And that's how you find those kind of like friendships that will transcend online when we get out of this thing. Okay, we've gone over everything, I think. So if you've got a question, please reach out to me and ask it to me, Alex Makes VR, on all of the socials. You can ask me a question at alexmakesvr@gmail.com. And if you want to be reminded when these episodes go live every single day, you can sign up to the newsletter at alexmakesvr.com. Until then, be nice, be kind, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.